Good evening, everybody. We got a special edition of Man Coverage coming to you live Tuesday, November 29th. Usually we're rocking things on Sunday, but we are changing things up a little bit as obviously we had the holiday going on this weekend, and we had rivalry weekend going down. So we got a lot of things to talk about today. Knoxville Nate, James Bonneville, Man Coverage with you here. James, how are you doing today, buddy?
You know me, any better to be a crime.
I like to hear it. We're going to kick things off first as we got a very, very special guest with us today. And we're going to go ahead and bring him on now. We got Jeff Hartings, former Penn State baller and current coach. Jeff, you hear us okay, buddy?
I hear you fine, man. Great to join you guys.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on with us, Jeff. We really appreciate it, and
It's a pleasure.
really wanted to talk to you because we had a lot of action going down in the Big Ten this weekend. Some conferences there that you're very familiar with, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on with the Big Ten conference and get your feelings. We got two teams that are coming into the Big Ten that aren't really, in Big Ten country as far as USC and UCLA goes. Now we've already added Maryland and Rutgers to the mix, and now we're going out to Los Angeles. What do you think about the Big Ten expanding out west and bringing in the LA market to a conference that's primarily been Midwest oriented?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously college football is a national sport with TV. I mean, in the days that I grew up, you basically only saw Big Ten football in Notre Dame, where I was from. Not really on the radar very much was USC, UCLA, and the Pac-10, except the bowl games and those type of things. Obviously, the rankings and all of those things. But now it's a national game. It's recruiting is very important. Money is even more important. This is a money move. There's no doubt about that. It's a power move in order for these schools to get into one of the, probably two best conferences, SEC and Big Ten now. And, maybe there was a little bit of sense of urgency from those two teams in particular to do that. But I think also the Big Ten had a lot of reasons for doing that. Like I said, recruiting. Now Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, they're occasionally, at least probably every year, either go to USC or UCLA and fill that schedule with two of the best teams on the West Coast. And like I said, money is a huge thing. And with this new playoff system, the more teams the Big Ten can get into the playoffs, probably the more money for the Big Ten. I'm sure that's what that would mean.
Definitely.
What was your process like coming out of St. Henry? I mean, you grew up in a town similar size that I did in Wisconsin, in St. Henry, in northwestern Ohio. What was your process like in getting, who else were you looking at during that time period to end up at Penn State? Because you look at a lot of the people that came from your town, like Lachey and Hoying and Beckman, they all ended up at Ohio State. Was there pressure at all to go to Ohio State? And what was that process like?
First of all, I grew up a Catholic boy. Not that the rest of the town wasn't Catholic. I mean, it's St. Henry, so pretty much it's Catholic. Pretty Catholic. But my family, my dad was an absolute diehard Notre Dame fan, and I mean, like throwing the paper at the TV. If not, I'm not kidding you. And so, I grew up a passionate Notre Dame fan myself. That was in the 80s. I mean, Notre Dame was winning national titles. I mean, they still are highly, I guess, got to be a top recruit. Let me just put it that way. I wasn't that, Jim Lachey had played at my school. Long story short, really, Jim Lachey is the inspiration for me wanting to go to the NFL, and kind of gave me the idea that I could actually go there. When he made it to the NFL, I was like, oh my goodness, like a kid from a small town can actually play in the NFL. Prior to that, I didn't even think it was possible. So I don't even know if I would have worked hard to even try to make it happen, because I probably felt like, small town boy could never, that could never happen. They didn't have TV, Twitter, all of those things as much back then. So that kind of made me want to decide to play college football. And then I greatly benefited from Bobby Hoying being a very highly recruited quarterback, not just Ohio State, but I don't, to be honest with you, I don't even know where all he got recruited by, but I imagine it was from a lot of schools in
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I've never thought about that before. I should probably ask him. He was such a slam dunk to Ohio State. I don't think he went anywhere else.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, I was, like I said, passionate Notre Dame fan. Didn't like Ohio State really at all. Notre Dame wasn't really going to be a possibility for me. So Penn State started recruiting Bobby Hoying and myself because we had went to some of their football camps as sophomore and junior to get on their radar. And I had a chance to win a national title and a chance to go to the NFL. I kind of figured if I start at Penn State, and that's what I went there for.
What was
Yeah.
what was the recruiting like? How was Coach Paterno like in that? Like when he came to your house for in-house visit? Like I could only imagine he's got like a billion stories.
Well, the recruiting process, first of all, when you're, and I think this is probably for any athlete, except for some of the athletes that, man, in the 7th grade, they're already getting recruited. But, when those first letters pour in, that's I kind of wish I would have saved a lot of those letters, but it's a really exciting time to be able to start knowing that you're getting recruited by Minnesota or whoever. And then Penn State letters start coming in, and you think about Joe Paterno off of the 82 national title, the 86 national title, man, I'm getting recruited. And, 89 probably, 90 for sure. But I will tell you this, I wasn't a quote unquote 5-star. Paterno, first of all, I don't even know, was in his 80s by then, at least, older for sure, his 70s. He wasn't making his way out to St. Henry, Ohio to recruit me, knowing that he had no shot at getting Bobby Hoying. So he sent his assistant coaches, but nonetheless, very exciting, something that you remember the rest of your life.
No, there's no doubt. And, obviously recruiting's changed, and being a coach now yourself, you've seen the other side of it. And I just want to get your take, Coach, on, what you think about all the stuff that goes on now. There's so much with the early recruiting period and with all the visits and, all the different rating systems that are out there now and all the people that cover recruiting. It's kind of crazy. And, we kind of know these kids now from when they're, 15, 16 years old. And to me, like thinking back, obviously I played Division III football at Ohio Wesleyan, so I wasn't on the cover of any magazines, but it just seems crazy to me to think that some of these 16, 17-year-olds, 15-year-olds are getting calls from head coaches and, getting talked about on national radio. And I just want to get your thoughts on, the recruiting changes that have happened and what it's like, being from a high school coach now.
Well, hey, I know you guys are completely aware. You missed the most important aspect of this now is money.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting offered money. I mean, they're 15, 16 years old getting offered $1 million to go play at Ohio State to be the next quarterback. I mean, it's hard for us to relate, I mean, us three and most people, because we're not living in that world. But, you think about LeBron James. I'm from Ohio. LeBron James's name from the time that he was 13 was called King LeBron.
Oh, yeah.
And he had this understanding that he was going to be a number 1 pick in the NBA draft by the time he was 15, 16 years old. So is it possible for them to be able to handle those things? I think it is, with the right parenting, with their, I don't know how LeBron was raised exactly, but he seemed like he handled it very well. And that's the extreme example.
Yeah.
But it's unhealthy, guys. It's absolutely unhealthy. There's no regulation. It's just unfortunate that basically the collegiate athletics, it's business and it's about making money, and everyone is afraid to regulate anything. Coaches are going to be getting paid 15, 20 million, probably not very long from now. And players are going to be getting paid 15, 20 million. Mark my word. They'll be getting paid 15, 20 million within. Marcus, CJ Stroud will be getting, if he stayed for another year, you said, who's your quarterback going to be next year? Maybe it'll be CJ Stroud for 15 million.
Yeah.
Because
I'd be okay with that.
Are coming.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, the days of that are happening. They're coming, and the days of the Caleb Williams having to stay for 3 years are going to be over, real soon. in my opinion. And I'm kind of surprised that some lawyer isn't actually banging down the door on that with, him being able to be the number one pick. And, us as fans, I think the best thing for us as fans to do is to not get caught up in all of the negativity of that and how we view that, and kind of just enjoy the game for what it is on Saturday afternoons and on Sunday afternoons. Hey, when you see NFL players go out there and play as hard as they do, they're not thinking about the $10 million, the $1 million check they're getting on Monday. As much as I played there, you're really not. You're out there competing. You're out there competing to win. And that's what the college kids are doing also. So from my perspective, the actual games are still pure. But all of that stuff around it, let's not kid ourselves. College athletics is just professional sports.
Yeah, it really is. And just a follow up to that, it's crazy to me how we went from you weren't allowed to get paid and there were so many rules around it to now there's no rules. And it's just like a free for all. And I just was like, if we could have, I feel like this could have been handled better. Don't you, Coach? Like maybe they could have put some guidelines in, or, maybe, some kind of strategy as to how this could have unfolded, as to now it's kind of the wild, wild west. And I think some guidelines might help this out a little bit. Don't you?
Yeah, I followed it, but I didn't follow it the way, the media would follow it or anything like that. And so I think the NCAA panicked. Well, they didn't panic. They responded the way they needed to respond because of the threat of litigation and them really losing what they have. And what they are is just an organization that oversees all of the colleges, the members of the NCAA. And do I think that the NCAA is even going to last, through my lifetime? No, I don't think so. I think right now, they have this playoff, this new 12-team playoff system. They're trying to get members aligned in that. And going back to that USC UCLA question, that's why those colleges, I think, wanted to get into one of those big conferences, either the SEC or the Big Ten, because of the fear of the unknown. And I don't think anybody can predict the future. But I've listened to enough TV to understand, from some of the experts that, the NCAA may or may not be lasting, for how long, who knows. And I hope that there's regulations that will be coming soon.
Now, you played for some legendary coaches throughout your career who really were radically different. It seemed like you must have had a billion mentors between Joe Pa. I mean, heck, the record stands for itself, the national championships. Then you played for Bobby Ross for the Lions, not only what he did at Maryland and Georgia Tech, but heck, taking the Chargers to the Super Bowl. And then Coach Cowher in Pittsburgh. You probably learned so many things, but what's the one biggest thing that you took away from those people, or who was it from, that you really helped you not only as a person and a player, but really helped you as a coach today?
Yeah, high school coaching, I think those guys are kind of like, especially where I was from. I mean, we all had mom and dad, and, the high school coaches are just coaching, but you still hold those guys in such high regard, and the fun that they had coaching, really. I mean, obviously, I had one coach in particular that was really intense, and we always joke about Coach Beckman was very intense, and then Coach Griesdorn was really intense, and then Weigel and Caney were just kind of fun guys to be around, but that was like 3 or 4 months out of the year. You go to Penn State and Joe Paterno. I mean, my goodness, obviously you're going to learn a lot. I think the number one thing, the first thing that comes to my mind is that you're either getting better or you're getting worse. I think that motivated me, like literally down to every single minute, every single hour of practice, every single day. And probably take that more like every day. I realized, like, man, every single day I'm going to do something to get better, because I just had that fear that I was not going to maximize my talent. And that's what he always preached about, was you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And if you're not getting better, then, obviously you're not going to be able to maximize your talent. And then, Bobby Ross was a workaholic. I mean, just very serious about football, really probably too serious. For even me, and I was pretty serious, and then thank God, really, I went to Pittsburgh and I had the flip side. I had Coach Cowher, and I was just telling somebody the other day, Coach Cowher, there can't hardly be a football player that played for him that would have a bad word to say about him, because and I'm not saying he was a player's coach. He was a player's coach, but he really understood how to make sure to set the tone, to make sure that we had the right attitude, but yet have fun and understand that it's an up and down season, and you're going to lose games. You're going to lose 2 in a row. And then when you lose 3 in a row, it's time to look yourself in the mirror and decide what you got to do to get better. And that was really the message of our Super Bowl season.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. It seems to me, from the outside looking in, it seems to me like the Steelers organization is just a finely run machine from the top down. And, it starts with ownership, obviously, but it also starts with the stability in the coaching staff. And that's something we were talking about, before this show was, after the game on Saturday, people wanted to fire Ryan Day, who's 45-5 and 31-2 in the conference. And, I just don't think firing coaches is the best way to have success. I mean, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee now, and you look here at what's happened, that they finally got Heupel in place, but we've gone through 5-6 coaches trying to replace Philip Fulmer. And just want to get your feeling on, the structure that the Steelers had and how that led to their success, and how, what your thoughts are as far as stability goes with the coaching ranks, how that helps a program.
Stability. That's what you're talking about, is stability. And organizations like Ohio State, Penn State, Tennessee, they need to have stability from the top down. And most of those organizations do, although Tennessee, did struggle a little bit with that, honestly. And that's probably why they struggled finding that right guy.
Yeah.
Ohio State doesn't have any problem with their stability. And so whatever athletes go there, it's going to be a long time before Ohio State gets knocked out of the top 10 or 15 on a year-to-year basis where they can't compete for a national title. And, there's going to be 12 playoff teams. You get spoiled, that's for sure. Speaking of Ohio State, they haven't been humbled in so long. Losing to Michigan 2 years in a row is like the most humbling thing that happened to them since 2010. 2011, 1 year they had a losing record, but in their own minds they had a lot of reasons and excuses for that, and then they just bounced right back. And really going back to the heart of your question, the difference between Pittsburgh Steelers and a lot of other organizations, but not every organization by any means in professional sports, and in football in particular, it starts with the ownership. They know how to run a business, and whether they were selling candy or selling cars or running a football team, it would be a very successful organization. And running a football team is different than running other businesses, and that's what some owners in the professional sports have found when they've shelled out millions and billions of dollars for these organizations, and they're not doing too well because they know how to sell product, but you're not selling product. You're managing multi-million-dollar athletes, and you're in salary caps, and you're exactly right. The Pittsburgh Steelers they've always found the right coach, and they've stuck with that coach. And they're entering a new era, though. They obviously have a rookie coach, but they're still hanging in there at 4-7, and we'll see how their season ends. But I think from on the football field, I like this rookie coach, this rookie quarterback, and we got to figure out some things with the cap. When you're paying quarterbacks $40 million, you got to figure those things out when they leave, because you're still taking that cap hit. But I'm thankful to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, former Pittsburgh Steeler, a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, because I believe that we're always going to be in it. We might have a year or two where we're out of it, but we'll find a way to always keep ourselves in playoff contention.
There's no doubt.
When you went to state college or even in the pros, probably this is, guess, a two-part question. When did you realize, oh crap, I got to up my game? Like, where was that oh crap moment when you realized, okay, I'm not in St. Henry anymore, I'm not in state college anymore, and the play has just gotten a lot better?
I'll be honest with you. I went into these environments already understanding that I was going to have to up my play a lot. Like, I'm going to have to be at the top of my game. And I got to be honest, I honestly think most players do. Most athletes do. I mean, you understand that if you're going from a high school to college, that's going to be at a different level. And either you can rise up to that level or you can't. because of the ability that you have, because of the mentality that you have. And obviously a lot of athletes can't. I'm grateful that I was blessed by God to have an ability to be able to play football. I mean, I couldn't have played basketball or other sports. I wasn't no multi-sport athlete, and football and offensive line also was a position that was perfectly fitted for my ability. And I wouldn't say right away, but very quickly when I went to Penn State, I realized like I'm going to be able to start. Now I'll say on the other hand, I had no idea that I'd be an all Big Ten, first team all Big Ten my third year, basically as a junior. Back then that was kind of unheard of, except for really, really special players. I just worked hard. That's all I knew how to do. Is I was going to just work hard every single day, maximize my ability, and the talent that God gave me resulted in me being a really good football player. And then, going to the NFL, I would say it was very similar. You guys probably don't know my story unless you did a lot of research, but I got drafted number 1, held out until week 5, signed on a Monday of week 6, and was told I was going to start on Sunday.
Yeah.
I peed my pants. I remember being in the meeting, like, I might have sat out, check me on this, but I might have not played that first game. I kind of forget. But I know it was like it was either week 1 or week 2. They were like, I was going to start. It still gives me a pit to my stomach. I'll never forget the rest of my life being in the office looking at it like, are you kidding me? Like, you're willing to stick me out there? So I guess it was kind of, maybe that was the moment where I was like, okay, put your big boy pants on and get ready to go. Because whether you like it or not, you're going to be going against Chester McLaughlin. And man, I shouldn't. I know the guy came from the Dallas Cowboys and he signed as a free agent. Russell, Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
Russell,
Maryland.
Chester
Miami.
McLaughlin.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I watched this guy in the Super Bowl, and now I got to block this guy. And I'll tell you, I still remember first of all, standing in Oakland Coliseum, staring up like, I cannot believe that I'm doing this. I did not expect to start like with 4 practices. And, but I got in there and I did pretty well, but I will admit my welcome to the NFL moment happened during that game when I went over and I thought I was going to cheap shot Chester McLaughlin, and I bounced off of him like a stinking, I don't even know what you call it, but that dude was big and strong. And I was like, I ain't going to be pushing people around. I better figure out how to play some technique football.
Yeah, well, then it gets easier, right? Then you go to the Steelers, and all you have to do is step in and replace Dermontti Dawson, right?
Oh, that's a whole nother story, man. I didn't even really, when they said I lied to them when they said you want to come to, talking to Coach Cowher, man, you excited to come to the Steelers to replace Dermontti Dawson? And I was thinking, no, not at all. I want to play guard. I'd like to play guard. You can find somebody else to play center and replace, the greatest center ever. And, quick story. So I was like, okay, well, I got to move to center. So I got to figure out how to play center.
Yeah.
So, obviously I'm at this Pittsburgh Steelers facility. Give me some film. I told the guys, film guys, I was like, give me some film of your games last year so I can watch Dermontti, see how to play center. I got to like the third game, the second game, whatever it was. I was talking to the coaches about his ability to reach 2 gaps and block 2 guys. And I'm watching this stuff, and I watch this Cleveland Browns game, play after play of him reaching a 3 technique, if you know what I'm talking about, a gap removed from where I'm at. He's reaching this guy and telling the guard to just go to the linebacker. I turned the film off, and I was like, I may as well just figure out the kind of player that I can be, because I can't do that kind of stuff. That was amazing.
He was amazing good.
What he did. There is nobody in the NFL today that can do it. Don't even let anybody kid you. They can't do what that guy could do in his prime. And there's probably only 5. There might even only be 2 or 3 guys that could do what he could do at the center position ever. Now, he's a different guy than other guys that can just maul guys and push guys around and drive guys. And I personally feel like I'm in a batch of, pretty good group of centers, close to Hall of Fame level. But I was more of an inline, straight ahead, very good run blocker, very good pass blocker, understood what I was doing, grade out 95% in a game. But Dermontti had just unbelievable ability.
Now, after '94 in Nebraska, and when they joined the Big Ten, does the Nebraska game mean a little more when Penn State goes up against them? Just because you guys never got a chance to go like actually play them like we would have today?
Man, to be honest with you, it might if they hadn't struggled so much lately. Nebraska's off the radar.
Yeah.
No offense to Nebraska. They know they're off the radar.
Yeah.
And, that's why they made a big move. I mean, Matt Rule, 8 years or 7 years, like $60 million. They didn't mess around with that contract. When I saw that contract, I'm like, those dudes ain't messing around. They understand the sense of urgency and their fans to get themselves back on the radar. And it's not going to be easy getting back on the radar with USC, UCLA, like you said, Wisconsin, a new coach. Iowa's always pretty decent. I don't expect Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan to go anywhere. And you guys had mentioned all the great coaches in the conference. So, they went out and got themselves a great coach, a guy that's proven himself, $9 million. And it would be exciting to see them get back to that level. But, I don't mean to age you and me and, the guys on this film, but or on this show. But that was 30 years ago, man.
I know.
It's hard to
I
believe.
know.
It's like
I know.
that's very humbling to me that, I used to, I'm starting to think like 30 years before 1990, I'm playing at Penn State. They ain't talking about 1960s games at Penn State, Penn State, and I don't even know who they were playing back in the 60s, but that was a long gone memory for all of these guys. Right now it's Ohio State and Michigan, and Penn State, we were winning those games in the third quarter, and we got to get a couple difference makers to win those games at the end of the game, and do what Michigan did to Ohio State in the fourth quarter, win that fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, that's what I wanted to ask you about next is, what your thoughts are on the job Coach Franklin has done, and Sean Clifford, I've always been a fan of just because he's from Ohio and came from St. X, I believe, in Cincinnati. Really good kid. And I like him as a player, but it just, like you said, he never could, close the deal in some of these big time games. But I feel like Franklin is a coach that can do it. I just want to get your thoughts on kind of the state of where things lie, in Happy Valley.
I think we're in really good shape. With James Franklin, he knows how to run a big time college program, and there's not very many guys that know how to do that, have proven that they can do it. And I would say, just thinking about it right now, a big and is interested in doing that at the college level. I think a lot of college coaches, is Lincoln Riley, is he going to be there forever, or eventually he going to the next level? James Franklin has really landed in, I think, a very good spot. He's a Pennsylvania guy. Yeah. So, I know Luke Fickell, and I'm thinking Luke Fickell going to Wisconsin, is that going to speak well? Is that going to recruit well in the state of Wisconsin the way he would have recruited really probably in this tri-state area? Man, everybody knows him. And that's how James Franklin is. He's building some stock in the state of Pennsylvania. And he also does a great job on TV recruiting guys, after games, during halftime. I always think he does all of those things very well. He's recruiting, very well for people. I get asked this question all the time. Happy Valley is an amazing place, and it is an amazing experience in that stadium. But it's not South, where it's warm and all of these guys have played and their families are close to. And we know all the great athletes are coming out of the South. And it's not Columbus, a big city, lots of opportunities, a lot of tradition, Heisman Trophy wins, national titles. And I think we're similar to Michigan, though. And so I think we should be beating Michigan. And I think occasionally we need to beat Ohio State, and we need to be content being 10-2. 11-1 and going to New York Six Bowls. And now we're going to be getting to those playoffs. Yeah. If you're in the top 12, we'll be in the playoffs, 2 out of every 3 years. So, going back to your Ohio State coach, with Ohio State fans getting greedy because it's like live and die whether they beat Michigan. And that's really what it is. They're so prideful that losing to Michigan, they've it's like the death of a child. I hate to say it, for some of these guys. I don't even know what the second worst thing is that could happen to some Ohio State fans. It's like losing to Michigan, and then, I don't know, divorcing my wife. Well, I don't know. I'd probably be fine if I divorced my wife, or
As
You
long
know,
as
I'd
we
rather
won.
beat Michigan and have my wife divorce me.
Yeah.
And it's like, geez, come on, man, get a life. It's, be content, get in the playoffs, make a couple plays, and then you'll get your national title once every 10 years, man. That's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All these fans that want to get rid of Day, if USC and maybe TCU go down this weekend and we get in the playoffs and win, are these fans going to be wanting him fired then?
Oh, absolutely. I got to be honest with you. That's part of the reason why I didn't like Ohio State was the fans that I grew up with, and man, they love their running backs until they fumble. They love their quarterbacks until they throw an interception. And I know a lot of fans are that way.
Yeah,
it just does seem a little bit overkill with Ohio State, but they've had such a tremendous amount of success. Like I said, I just think they're used to that. And when they don't get it, they don't know how to respond. And I truly mean that.
yeah.
I mean, I have a really good friend from Northwestern, and he's really humble, and he understands who Northwestern is. And he says, Jeff, come on. I mean, we've been terrible for a long time, and I'm just thankful that we can win games now and compete.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, and Coach Fitzgerald, he's a great guy, and he doesn't have the talent that some of these other teams do, but he does figure out a way every once in a while to get to that Big Ten championship game, and I think there's great coaches now in the Big Ten, and that's we got to get you out of here, I know, but I wanted to get your thoughts before we let you go about the coaches that are now in the Big Ten, especially with Chip Kelly, Lincoln Riley coming in, Matt Rule coming in. We just talked about Luke Fickell coming in. I've got to say, I think the Big Ten has the best coaches in college football now. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm thankful that I'll answer the question this way. I'm thankful that I had a chance to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're always going to give me a chance to root for them in the Super Bowl, and I'm thankful I played in the Big Ten and I'm thankful the Big Ten has done what they did.
Me too.
Because the SEC and the Big Ten kind of separated themselves, especially with that move. You decimated the Pac-10, the SEC, and the Big Ten kind of decimated the Big Eight, which I don't even know what they're called anymore. Big 12.
Big 12, but they only got 10 teams.
Yeah, exactly. and then and you have the ACC, and that's kind of become an afterthought. And they have some academic standards in the ACC that are tougher than the Big Ten and the SEC. And then it's more known for a basketball conference. So, I think for the foreseeable future, it's the Big Ten and the SEC. And kids are going to want to go to those places, those conferences. They're going to want to compete for conference titles, and they're going to get in the playoffs. Yeah. And so I'm thankful that Penn State is in that group. They're investing heavily in their coach, 8, 9, 10 million. And that's, that's where I go back to the regulations. It's, they ought to just cap these coaches' salaries too, and cap all of these things. And then, but that being said, there's obviously great coaching, and I'm excited about that.
There's no doubt.
One last question.
You get the last one. Thanks.
Go ahead.
The whiteout, you never got a chance to play in it. Does it, when you watch it now, does you just one, wish you would have ever got a chance to play in a whiteout, and two, does the hairs in the back of your neck kind of go up every time you see Penn State running the field during a whiteout?
I've been to the last two. That's the game that I try to go to, and it is absolutely amazing. Auburn last year, and Ohio State a few years ago. I went to that one. We lost at the end. So that for 3 hours, that was great. The last 10 minutes, it wasn't. But it is amazing. I think they're right. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better experience in college football.
Yeah,
I would agree. Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We both were huge fans of yours growing up, and we really appreciate the chance to get to talk to you. And best of luck at Worthington Christian coming up here with the season getting over, but getting ready for next year.
Hey, that was a lot of fun. Send me your post in a link to this show, okay? And I'll put it up on my Twitter, and my kids will too.
Perfect. We appreciate it,
Coach. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day. And we appreciate your time.
You too. Have a good evening.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. One of the all-time greats. As I said, replaced Dermontti Dawson in Pittsburgh. He's humble about it, but he did a really, really good job, and became an all-pro. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, helped them win the Super Bowl. Was a first, like I said, first team All-Pro in 2004, second team All-Pro in 2001, 2 times Pro Bowler. This guy was a heck of a player, and as he mentioned, he did it with hard work and outworked his opponent, and was a hell of a player at Penn State as well. So I'm really glad we got the chance to bring him on the show tonight. And kudos to our boy Adam White. Adam Whitey White, he set that up for us. Adam's got some connections over there at Worthington Christian, and we really want to take a minute here to thank Adam for connecting us with Jeff and allowing us to have him on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's funny. He brought up 30 years ago. In my mind, it feels like just yesterday. I mean, heck, yeah. I remember the 94 game in Minnesota, first play of the game. He opens up a hole for Kajana Carter and he goes 80. Yeah. And I mean, it was like he opened up the Red Sea and the Red Sea just parted and Kajana just galloped down the field. It was crazy. I mean, that team was so good. Kyle Brady, Kerry Collins, Bobby Ingram. I mean, my God, it was amazing.
Yeah, no. And as you mentioned and talked to him about, he got to play for some of the greatest coaches in the history of football.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Bobby Ross, I don't think gets near the credit that guy deserves. I mean, people forget about in the mid 80s, what they were down, 35 at the half in Miami.
Yep.
And came back and beat them. I mean, that's unheard of.
There's no doubt. And I liked hearing him talk about the Steelers organization. That was really cool. And,
yeah,
they do it the right way. And they still, bring Jeff back and let him be a part of it because they're like a family. I mean, yeah. They really are. And they don't fire a coach after 1 year like some of these other NFL teams do. That never seems to work. And I want to we're going to get into the coaching here in just a minute. And thank everybody for joining us here on a Tuesday Man Coverage Special Edition. We obviously were done and out for the holiday, so we wanted to come back and have our special guest and then also talk about what went down. And we got to go to the Horseshoe. First and foremost, I was a little bit nervous about this game going in. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a Buckeye fan through and through. I was a little bit nervous about it, but then I watched the first half and I was like, we're dominating this game. I mean, we really were dominating the game. I mean, from a yardage standpoint, I think Michigan had 49 yards total and couldn't run at all. Blake Corum ran out in the field, tried to go. He ran off, didn't play again. Same thing really with Mayan Williams. He tried to play, but he wasn't the same. Travion stood over there with his jersey and no pads like he usually does. But it was weird because, they didn't really run out Dallin Hayden like I thought they would. It was Trainum was the running back who only had 1 carry coming in, and I was really concerned about that. But they were running the football with him, and the offensive line looked good. And then halftime came. And I've got to give Coach Harbaugh some credit. Him and his staff did a really good job making adjustments, and they didn't try to keep running when it wasn't working. They came out and threw the football, and they caught the Ohio State secondary off guard and cracked some big plays, and then it was over. What did you think about that ball game?
Honestly, you go back to it, and the number of times that you would see Ohio State run cover 0, and they got burned on it practically every play. I mean, it's funny is you thought that J.J. McCarthy had this outlandish game by looking at the box score, but then you look at his numbers, he was only 12 of 24. I mean, 50% completion percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. You throw for over 250 yards on 12 completions. I mean, it doesn't hurt when you get a 75-yarder to Cornelius Johnson, but I mean, Donovan Edwards, even with the club in hand, my God, was he just an animal in the second half. I mean, it was crazy. And it just seemed like every time Ohio State was trying to get back into it, just smack him upside the head. And here comes Donovan Edwards without Corum. They beat him without Corum.
Yeah. Well, and I really think the biggest issue was, and as you mentioned, I agree with you. It's not like J.J. McCarthy. They were like, oh, he can't throw it deep. And, he proved it. These guys were wide open. I mean, there was 3 times that there was receivers running down the field, and there wasn't anyone within 20 yards of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, did he get them the ball? Yes, but it wasn't like he threw these perfect passes and fit it in a tight window.
Oh.
It was guys running free down the field, and that's on the secondary. And I want to ask you something that me and you have talked about a little bit off air, but I want to get your thoughts on it while we're talking here. What's happened to Denzel Burke? Because this guy was a big time baller as a freshman, and now, I mean, he can't cover anyone or anything. I just don't understand what's going on. What's happened to him?
It makes me wonder if coaches saw something off season on film on how to exploit him. Now, honestly, I haven't picked up on it, but you could obviously, he went from being somebody you thought was going to be that next lockdown corner, kind of like an Antoine Winfield, not quite a Charles Woodson, because let's be honest, that's a special case. Yeah. But Ward looked like he was going to be one of those guys that was going to take it to the next level. And many times he looked lost. Like, it was like there was a different game going out there. And maybe Jim Knowles' system still takes some time to develop under the cornerbacks. We'll see next year. But, yeah, the D-backs have got to step up. I mean, heck, you look at the last 3 years at Ohio State, that's been their Achilles heel, is their D-backs.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about Ohio State and you think about Jeff Okudah, you think about Denzel Burke, you think about Malcolm Jenkins, you think about Mike Dawson. I mean, they've had some of the greatest defensive backs in all of football. Who's that guy now? I mean, it's not Denzel Burke. I like Hickman. He's a pretty good guy in the box and a good playmaker, but is he a great cover guy? No. And I just don't know who on that team is a really good cover guy. And, people want to criticize Knowles for this game. I don't. I think the defense was pretty solid this year. And I think that this game, Michigan, as I said, did a great job coaching, and they figured out the weaknesses of this defense. And I think if you give Coach Knowles some time to bring in his guys and develop his system, I think they'll be just fine on the defensive end. What do you think about that?
Look at last year, how much we were complaining about the linebacker play in Columbus.
Yeah.
And I mean, heck, today Eichenberg got named first team all Big Ten. I mean, Steel Chambers, great linebacker. I mean, linebacker play escalated. I mean, JTT on the line, it looks like he could be a stud. I think if they could just get those pieces along the outside to take them to the next level, that'll be key.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm not really concerned with him, and I'm not really concerned with Coach Day either. I think that he's got some things to clean up with play calling, but this is a guy who people forget he was the play caller for Urban.
Yeah,
and he's done some very good things. He comes from that staff that had Dan Mullen and Chip Kelly and him all on it. And this is a guy who, you could say he's born on third. You can make fun of him. You can do whatever you want. But he's 45-5, and he's 31-2 in the Big Ten. And, people that want to fire him, look back at what Michigan did. They lost Harbaugh lost his first 5 times he played against Ohio State. They didn't fire him. They said, you need to get this shit figured out. And he has. So I think Ryan Day will figure it out as well.
It's funny you bring up Harbaugh. Remember how much fun we were making fun of him on signing day interviewing with the Minnesota Vikings? You lost 3 guys to the first round, and they're still back. This is, honestly, this may be his best coaching job.
Oh, I think it is.
I can't imagine going through spring ball. There were probably some doubters that things could go seriously wrong in that locker room, and he kept them together, and look what they did.
Not only the players, he lost both coordinators.
Yeah,
think about that. Both coordinators are gone. The defense coordinator went to Baltimore. His Gaddis went down to Miami, and he proved really quickly that it wasn't about those guys. It was about him. It was about his system. It was about his program. And I got to admit, I didn't really see that coming. So,
heck, if you just had a roll of football out there, Texas A&M wouldn't be sitting home in December and January. They'd be playing someplace. He got those guys to believe in themselves
Yeah.
And now they're going to be playing for a college football playoff.
Yeah. Let's talk about something else. But yeah,
sorry
we got it.
Sorry to down you there. Sorry about
No,
that.
it's all right. It's all right. We're not out of it yet. All we need is a couple teams to lose, and we'll be right back in it. And then all those idiot fans that wanted Coach Day fired, they'll be loving him if we win the college football playoff. They'll be wanting to, be his buddy. So, maybe shut your mouth if you don't know what you're talking about. But you mentioned Texas A&M, and this is a team that struggled all year long. They've looked horrible. They've only won 4 games. But I'm not going to lie, I kind of thought that they might have a chance going into this LSU game. I just really did. I thought they matched up well with them from a defensive perspective, looking at their offense. And I also thought LSU might struggle to stop their running back. Well, hell, that was definitely the case. I mean, 38 carries, 215 yards for Achane, 2 touchdowns. And then I don't know if you watched this game, but
I did.
By Moose Muhammad. I've never seen anyone make some of the catches like that. One of them in my life, and then he made 2 of them. So they finally, this is, I think, the problem that people have had, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the problem that people have had with Texas A&M and with Jimbo, is that this is what they could have been all year, don't you think?
Oh, 100%. We've been talking about Achane all year and I really felt bad for him because I don't think he really got a chance to really showcase how really good this kid is. Except now you look at this game, 38 carries, 215 yards, for 5.7 average. It's impressive. And he brought those safeties up so Wegman could go over the top to Moose Muhammad. That 2nd and 6 with that one-hander, one-handed left with his left hand catch. That was an amazing catch.
It was unbelievable, and he had to do it because the guy had a hold of his right arm. So that was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
The defense played pretty well too. You think about this LSU team, and they're, they've had pretty good time running the football. And now Jaden Daniels kind of scrambled some, and he still had 84 yards rushing. But, Emory had 3 touchdowns, but it's not like he was really tearing it up all game long. And they struggled to really do anything offensively.
The thing, LSU, who have they really beaten?
Nobody.
Nobody. They'll go back to Alabama. Yeah, but you played them in Death Valley at night. I don't care what you're talking about. That's probably just as hard, if not harder, than playing in Penn State during the whiteout. That is a very hard place to play. And I got to tip my hat to Jimbo on this one, but I think they got to do something to liven up that offense. Already I've seen 3 guys from A&M jump in the transfer portal. 2 of them were freshmen that came in this year. So, he's got to do something quick. Otherwise, it's just as easy to leave as it was to come in.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's the big change with recruiting now. You got to recruit your own players each and every year. Do you have names as far as who hit the portal? I saw that Hudson Card, the quarterback for Texas, hit the portal. I saw that Caden McNamara, the quarterback from Michigan, also hit the portal. Who are the guys from A&M? Do you know?
I don't have that in front of me. I just scrolled through and saw that today that there were 3 guys minimum. 2 of the freshmen popped out early this morning. And on Twitter, I don't have those names off the top of my head, but you knew that was going to happen. It just seemed like their locker room was just gone.
Yeah, we heard about a lot of things going down in that locker room that, didn't sound like a conducive to winning atmosphere. That's for sure. So we'll see if he can get it turned around. That was a big win for them to end the season. They're not going to a bowl game, but as we mentioned, Coach Fisher isn't going anywhere. They're not going to pay him $86 million to leave. 5-7, 2-6 in the SEC. He's got to get things figured out and get them figured out quick. Hopefully, as Coach Franklin mentioned, he'll turn over the play calling duties really quickly. But there's a lot of ego involved in that. But a coach that I want to talk about on the other end of the spectrum is no longer Frank Beamer's son, Shane Beamer. It's not Frank Beamer's kid anymore. It's Shane Beamer. I mean, we talked about on the last show the victory versus Tennessee and the thumping he put on the Vols. And now, for the second time in 2 weeks, Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks take out a top 10 opponent. Got to admit, I was watching this game and I'm like, man, this doesn't look good for them. They were down 2 scores. I didn't think they could come back. And then they just kept fighting. They kept doing the things that they've done throughout the year. They kept believing. And then the 2 fumbled punts, that kind of sealed it. What did you think about South Carolina winning another game versus a top 10 opponent?
Well, honestly, I like the way they've made Rattler go more vertical.
Yeah.
I mean, when he has to play too conservative, he really struggles with that. And I mean, if he follows up with a good bowl game, I could see him leaving to go to the pros. I could. I mean, granted, we're gonna have to see what the what the assumptions are from the coaching staff, what they're hearing from the NFL. But I mean, this is the kid we all expected to be at Oklahoma last year, who didn't show up.
Yeah.
And I was worried that this was just going downhill too quick. But, I mean, that Tennessee game and now this, I mean, he looks like a completely new kid.
He does. I don't know if these 2 games are enough to propel him into the first round. I mean, I
would say first round, but I think he could go second or third.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at the quarterbacks list that are coming out, and also, who needs a quarterback? That's what you have to think about when you're talking about the NFL draft. Is that's not something we really talk about a bunch on this show because we're college football based here on Man Coverage. But who needs a quarterback, and who needs one to start? Who needs a developmental guy? That all comes into play. So we'll talk about that. But the quarterback I want to talk about is the other guy. The Clemson quarterback, and DJ Uiagalelei. We talked about him a lot all year long. We kind of figured he would get replaced at some point. Dabo stuck with him. I think it finally caught up to Dabo here.
Yep.
8 of 29, 99 yards, an interception, a QBR of 27.5. Do you think it caught up to him? Because I do.
I honestly, if I'm DJU right now, I am seriously considering jumping the portal. And I've got the perfect place for him to go. And I think this guy can resurrect DJU to the quarterback everybody thought we saw during COVID year. And that's up in Washington with Kalen DeBoer. He gets to go back to the West Coast. And, I mean, if you've got a live arm and you play in DeBoer's system, man, that would be a ton of fun. I mean, all you're doing is whipping it all over the field. I mean, that offense is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, no, Michael Penix has thrived in it, and they've had a lot of success in year 1, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, he's been very loyal to him up to this point. So we'll see if that loyalty carries on after a loss to South Carolina. Now, I haven't heard anyone calling for Dabo's job. The rivalry. That's my point. I mean, the rivalry between South Carolina and Clemson, it's not quite the same as what we're talking about up in Columbus. Not even close, right?
No. Well, I mean, it's in state. I mean, the only people that truly care about that rivalry is 1, if you went there, and 2, if you live there.
Yeah, pretty much. Or if you have a beach house there.
True. Yeah.
Know who that is, but whatever. But yeah, it was a good win, and I think Coach Beamer is doing something down there. And my only question is to you: does Coach Beamer stay at South Carolina? Because I've got to imagine if another job comes open, this is a guy that I think people might want to take a look at.
It'd have to be the right job. Right now, I don't think that job exists with what's open, but I could see it. But I mean, the one school I don't see him going to is Virginia Tech, because I don't think he wants to follow in his father's footsteps. And man, that's a hard thing to do, because you're constantly going to be compared to your father every time you turn around. And there's similarities, no doubt about it. I mean, especially in special teams play.
Yeah.
You could see his dad's influence just running right through him. I practically think it's like in his DNA. But I mean, offensively, you could definitely tell there's a divergence from his father's thought process.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and maybe that's one of the reasons he's been successful.
Yeah.
But I watched this team, and they kind of took on the persona and the personality of their coach. It seemed like towards the end of the season, and really, they weren't able to run the ball again against Clemson. I mean, Jaheim Bell, who actually ran it all right against Tennessee, he had 9 carries for 29 yards, and Marshawn Lloyd actually came back. But he was even worse, 11 carries for 16 yards. So it wasn't like they just ran it down their throats. They had to throw it around again and, get some big plays on special teams. But I do like this Antoine Wells Jr. kid. He's a playmaker. And I like what I see out of him. So we'll be watching Carolina, see which bowl game they go to. And we'll have to see if like you said, if Spencer Rattler has another big game. Maybe he does move on, but I think it'd be best for him to come back.
I would too.
Come back.
I would, if I were him, I would come back.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the transfer portal, I mean, let's be honest, they really never had a running back this year.
No.
I mean, that's if they could find something there and give him a little more help. South Carolina's outperformed expectations. They've outkicked their coverage.
Yeah, get another lineman, get another wide receiver, get another tight end, give him a little bit of help. I mean, I would want to go there if I was a skill player and get on the field right away and win 8 to 10 games with Coach Beamer and the way that he really relates to his kids. I think it'd be a good place to go. So hopefully he does come back and tries to build something there. But, there's obviously a couple other big games that went on this past weekend. I think one that we need to touch on is obviously up in Oregon. Some people thought that Oregon might still have a chance to sneak in, and didn't happen. They were up by 21 points, but they weren't able to seal the deal. What did you think about Oregon State pulling that game out against Oregon?
We've talked about this guy quite a bit for the past year, and I am a huge fan of Jonathan Smith. Yeah. I mean, you go back to when he was playing for Craig Erickson at Oregon State. Who was his receivers? Ocho Cinco and TJ Hushmanzada. They kind of had a little bit of a career in the NFL. You may have heard of them. But they had a running back in Ken Simonton who really tore it up. I mean, that offense was deadly. And then you look at his coaching career. He was the offensive coordinator at Washington. As soon as he left to go to Oregon State, what did Washington do? They went downhill offensively.
Big time.
And what he is doing at Oregon State, rebuilding from Gary Anderson's disaster, is phenomenal. I mean, honestly, we keep talking about Shane Beamer. I think Jonathan Smith is probably one of the most underknown names across the country because winning at Corvallis is tough. And he's got him in the top 15.
And what's even tougher is how do you win a football game when your quarterback throws for 60 yards and 2 picks?
They never threw a pass the last quarter and a half.
I know. And
that is the definition of owning somebody.
Yeah, 268 yards on the ground.
They just literally took Oregon's soul. And
ran for 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's just punching you in the face right there. And that's the kind of football I like to watch.
I mean, was Tom Osborne and Barry Switzer in the stands or something? I mean, it was crazy watching Oregon State just literally take their soul.
It was kind of fun, and I enjoyed seeing it. I wasn't a true believer. When everybody was getting all excited about the Ducks, I was just kind of like, I don't know, slow your roll here a little bit.
But I think they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. But I think people have underestimated Oregon State all year long.
All year long. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a team that finished 9-3, 6-3 in the conference, and took care of their arch rival in a big time game on a big time stage, and came back from 21 points down by running the football. So,
I mean, they're 9-3. That's like the quietest 9-3 you'll hear about across the country. If you're 9-3 in the SEC, Man, everybody knows about it. Heck, your sister's dog's best friend's girlfriend knows about it.
Yeah.
Oregon State goes 9-3, and nobody even in Idaho knows about it.
No, nobody knows anywhere. But they did it, and that's a very good testament to their coaching staff for getting it done, and also Mississippi State with a big win over Ole Miss. I watched that entire game. I couldn't believe it. It didn't look like the same Ole Miss team that I'd been watching all year. They kind of went down they got worse as the season went along. I really don't know how to explain that, but it was kind of surprising to me. But the fourth quarter, Mississippi State put up 10 points and ended up figuring out a way to get this one done. What did you think about the Egg Bowl?
Honestly, I kind of thought this was going to happen. I mean, you look at Ole Miss, and you and I talked about this offline. What's their best win?
Kentucky?
I was thinking that or Troy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Kentucky's a big win. I was just saying Kentucky because at least they're kind of in the SEC, I
mean, if they're 8-4, yet you're kind of like, really?
Who'd you beat?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, don't get me wrong. I really like that Judkins kid. I think that kid's going to be a star.
Yeah, I like him too.
I look at the rest of that offense and I'm like, this is so counter to what we've seen from past Kiffin's teams where they're vertical, they're up tempo. It's fun to watch. This was like watching 1980s Big Ten football.
Yeah. I think about, the final play there where Ole Miss went down and scored, and then they had to go for 2 to tie it. And they tried to run a shovel pass.
Yep.
I mean, that's your call. I mean, really? That to me was kind of shocking. And the other thing that we've talked about a lot this year, but I want to discuss it again. Judkins was barely recruited out of high school, and in this game, the biggest game of the year for these two teams, he goes for 91 yards. And Zach Evans, who is one of the highest rated running backs in the country, carries it 5 times for no yards.
Yep.
Stars don't always mean a thing. You know what I'm saying?
The second you show up on campus, guess what? Your star rating doesn't mean crap.
Yeah, there's no star rating system in college, buddy.
Look at our guest today, Jeff. Coach Hartings, he came from a small town in Ohio to becoming a 2-time All Big Ten, All American, first-round draft pick.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, your heart doesn't tell you how many stars you got. You got to believe in yourself and do the work. And some of these guys just don't do. I mean, some get injured. Injuries freaking happen in the game. And I think a lot of people don't put that into consideration. But some guys just don't step up to the challenge either.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt. And talk about stepping up to the challenge. We got to talk about this coaching carousel before we get out of here. Crazy moves. And I want to get your thoughts on the moves that have already been made. And then real quickly, we'll hit on the jobs that are still open. First off, let's go to Lincoln. There was some speculation about Dion going there. There was talks about some other coaches going there. And finally, they settled on Matt Rule. Now, Matt Rule won at Temple. Matt Rule won at Baylor. Both places, it took him a couple of years. Now, both those programs were decimated before he got there. Obviously, the sexual assault scandal at Baylor and Temple just being Temple before that. But he was able to win there. And, if you can win at Temple, surely to God, you could pretty much win anywhere. But this isn't going to be easy. And, as Jeff mentioned, they gave him a big-time contract. But Scott Frost got a big-time contract too, and then they gave him a pretty long leash. I don't know if they're going to be, as forgiving with a guy who didn't win him a national championship. What did you think about the hire of Matt Rule to Nebraska?
I liked it a lot. The one thing I think Nebraska fans have to put into perspective is he's going to want to rebuild this team, which means he's going to want to strip it down to the studs and start over. And the first year or two could get ugly. Now he's going to be recruiting in an area he's never recruited on. So watching his assistant coach hires are going to be very intriguing to watch in the coming days to see who he brings in to, fit his image. Because, I mean, heck, at the end of the day, you need those coaches. Now, does he do what he did at Baylor and bring in a guy like a Joey McGuire type who really, I mean, Joey McGuire was a former high school coach who was well respected, who could get him into those circles. Does he go to a place like Ohio or Illinois to go grab one of those guys to do that? Or heck, does he try to go back down to Texas or go out to California? I mean, it'd be interesting to watch those hiring processes, because that type of move is a Matt Rule type of move and possibly could be somebody to watch in the future. But I personally like the hire.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, honestly, I thought about all the options there and who else they could have got. And I think this is a pretty good fit for what they're wanting to do. They want someone to come in and fix this. They want someone to come in that's done it before, and that's who they got.
He's a Big Ten guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. No one's been able to do this, really since Tom Osborne left. And as we've talked about a ton on this show, going to the Big Ten has not proven to be a good thing for this program. So, can Matt Rule overcome this? I don't know. But, he has been, he coached at Penn State back in the day. That's where he started his coaching career, was at Penn State as a volunteer assistant in 1998. He went to Penn State. That's where he went to school. So it's a Penn State program today, He grew up in New York City, but then moved to State College and, played linebacker at high school and walked on at Penn State. So, he does know the Big Ten, and I think that's going to help him.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, what he did at Baylor, when he had zero connection to that program, and how he turned them around that quick. I mean, he looks for guys. He's looking for certain metrics in players. You may not play that position right now, but guess what? You may be coming to when you come to Nebraska.
Yeah, I heard an interview with him today with Dusty and Danny, and those two idiots. But he talked about how he's going to be looking for a certain type of guy.
Yeah,
he's looking for guys that fit his system. He wants guys that want to be there. He wants guys that want to put the work in. And the question is, can he find him? That's what the question will be.
Honestly, I never understood the move to Carolina. I mean, he's just not a pro guy. He's not an X's and O's guy. He's a motivator. He's a CEO type. He wants to recruit guys. In the NFL, you don't recruit. You draft and you got free agency. That's pretty much about it. And
yeah, but like all these other guys, I mean, they offered him 7 years, $72 million. I mean, it's like Urban Meyer. Is he a pro football coach? No, he's a college football genius, but you give him 12 million reasons to go to Jacksonville, and he packs his bag up. I mean, it's hard to turn down $72 million guaranteed. So I don't really blame him, but I think he's back where he belongs in college football. So we'll see how that goes in Nebraska. We'll see if he can do what Scott Frost couldn't. But the other big time hire that went down very recently was down in the SEC. And that's the program that we've been laughing at for about 2 years now. I mean, they found somebody that kind of fits their program, and that's down in Auburn, and hiring Hugh Freeze. Personally, I think it's a great hire.
Yeah,
I think Hugh Freeze was made for this place. I think this guy can come in and win. If you can win at Liberty, I think you can win pretty much anywhere. And I think back to what this guy did at Ole Miss. Wow, Ole Miss football had sucked since Eli Manning was there, and Hugh Freeze came in and was recruiting. He got the number one player in the country to come down to Oxford. So I think this is a great hire, Hugh Freeze to Auburn. What did you think when you saw it, and how do you think he'll do there?
It should have happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, I'm sorry to steal your quote, which you said earlier today. It
I
should have
did say
happened
that.
it should have happened 2 years ago.
I did say that. I did say that.
I mean, Hugh Freeze. I mean, heck, he even coached Michael Orr in high school. I mean, this
Yeah.
guy can coach, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time. And I'm kind of going to be intrigued by how the boosters, their rival factions, come together on Hugh Freeze. I mean, he is a Southern guy. He knows they'll recruit the SEC. That should cross check a lot of boxes. But those boosters are crazy. And if they can keep settled down, allow him to coach, there's upside in Auburn, because Nick Saban can't live forever in Tuscaloosa.
Maybe. I mean, he sleeps in an oxygen chamber. So
he's a vampire. He's a vampire. He's gonna live forever.
He might. I don't know. But hey, we saw some chinks in the armor this year with a couple of losses. Of course, they want to still put them in the damn college football playoff. Even with the 2 losses, they're like, well, they were good last year, so put it Bama in.
They're 6-6. They're a national champion.
Yeah, they'll probably end up winning it all. Nick Saban wins his 17th title with a 7-5 regular season. So we'll see what happens there. But I do like the Hugh Freeze hire. I think he fits in good with the. I'm not gonna take shots at anybody, but he fits in well with the rest of the crew down there at Auburn, and kind of reminds me of all those idiots that live down there. So he'll fit right in, and I think he'll do a good job. But we'll see what happens. Want to talk about a couple of the other hires. What's the other hires that stuck out to you? The other one that really sticks out to me is Wisconsin.
Yes,
getting Luke Fickell. Michigan State tried to get him. He wouldn't leave Cincinnati.
Well, I think the timing was bad on that. But Luke Fickell, honestly, this is the best hire. I mean, this is honestly, if Wisconsin was going to get that home run hire, it's Fickell. Now,
I want to ask you a question first before you go on with what you think. I want to know, did Jim Leonard lose the position by what happened the last few weeks, or do you think they had already decided to go outside the program?
I think they already decided to go outside the program. I mean,
too.
One thing that I think made Fickell very attractive is he only had a $3.5 million buyout. And it's funny how usually in even last year when he was in the playoff, you heard Fickell's name about other jobs. His was the one name you didn't hear about this year, and he's got a low buyout. Why didn't Cincinnati up him? It's almost like they kind of figured they knew he was gone. And it makes me wonder if these conversations were happening earlier. Now, to Wisconsin's benefit, them losing to Tulane helped them. Now, if they beat Tulane and play for the American Championship and then win that and then play in a January 1st bowl, does this still happen? I don't know. I mean, this is a whole new conversation, but things worked out for Wisconsin, and Fickell is going to be living in Madison for the time being.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that played out. If Cincinnati was right there in this game, I mean, it was 20-17. It was very, very close game, and I kind of thought Cincinnati might pull that out, and Tulane hangs on and beats them by 3 points. But yeah, I mean, if Cincinnati wins that game, goes to the conference championship, wins it, finishes 11-2, you got to consider them for big time
Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, big time bowl game. So this kind of worked out really well for Wisconsin, and I think it's a good hire. I mean, this is what I always think about. If you're going to fire somebody at your school that's had a lot of success, like Coach Chris did, you better have a goddamn plan. That's my only thing. You want to fire somebody. Obviously, they have Wisconsin struggled this year, especially at the beginning of the season. They didn't look right. Something was off. Their offense was horrible. There was something going on there. And, they made the move. They got rid of him. And I'm like, okay, well, you did it. You better come up and hire somebody good. You better have a plan here. And, wow, they had a plan. I mean, they got a guy who is one of the hottest young coaches in all of college football. And I think this is an A-plus hire.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at his 6 years at Cincinnati. If they win their bowl game, well, no, he's not even going to be there. 3 of the 6 years, he went double-digit wins. And he's not even going to get a chance. If he stayed for the bowl game, he probably would have been 4 of the 6. I mean, now the real key is, who does he bring as his coordinators? Now, a name that I think will be his defensive coordinator is a guy named Chad Wilt, who's currently the defensive coordinator at Indiana, was his DN's coach when Freeman was his DC at Cincinnati. I could see that move happening. Now, offensively, that's going to be intriguing. What type of offense are they going to run? Because they've ran the same damn offense since Barry Alvarez was there.
Yeah.
Do they switch it up? Because I think they have to.
I think so too. I don't think that Coach Fickell would have taken this job if he didn't have complete control over this program. I mean, I know he's heard the horror stories with Bielema. I think he's probably talked to Coach Christ. I'm sure he has. And I think he went in and said, listen, if you want me to be the coach, let me be the coach. And I think he'll have control over, how this program is run. Don't you?
I do. I mean, it's just, he's such a defensive-minded guy. I wonder who he's going to have as that offensive helm, because it's not like his teams were that offensive juggernauts. I mean, he's produced a lot of great players, but they were never this, team that was going to throw up 40 points every game. And
no.
They always try to make it a fist fight no matter what it was. But he recruited incredibly well, especially in that Cincinnati area. I mean, for a G5 team, they were getting 4-star guys. How many G5 teams do you get 4-star guys? Not many.
Yeah, not many at all. But we'll see. We'll see what he does up there. I think this was the best hire they could possibly make. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Am I forgetting somebody?
Well, you got Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. I mean, he's went to school there, coached in the area, then went with Norvell around the country before coming back. I mean, he's a young coach, but I think he's a good fit in Tempe. I think that's a really good hire for the Sun Devils.
Yeah, and he was the offense coordinator at Oregon this past year, for people who did not know.
Yeah. Biff Poggi at Charlotte. If you don't know about him, check him out. This is actually a really intriguing hire. He was a consultant for Harbaugh this year, but this guy really knows his stuff.
Yeah, no, I think those are 2 interesting moves, to say the least. We got to talk a minute about the jobs that are still open. Obviously, everyone who loves and knows about college football heard the news about Shaw, David Shaw, retiring or resigning from his job at Stanford. Guy, really respected coach. I really love the guy. I think he's a great man. I think he's a really good football coach, but things have not gone well the last few seasons up there. The longer you stay at a place, they either grow to love you or they grow to hate you. And I don't think they hate David Shaw. I don't think that's true at all. But I do think it was probably time for him to go. But I'm not sure who the guy is to replace him. And I want to get your thoughts. Who does Stanford bring in?
Honestly, I can't, for the life of me, can't figure that one out.
I don't know. I mean,
like, there's always jobs. I'm hearing rumors that Willie Fritz is going to be getting the job at Georgia Tech. I think that's a fantastic hire. I mean, like, literally the home run of home run hires. But the Stanford job's very difficult to figure out, because you got to deal with very interesting. I mean, heck, their administration's not the most, is not the easiest people to work with. Now, an out of the box move, and you're going to kind of laugh at this as soon as I bring this name up. His name was brought up last week by Mr. Franklin, is Troy Taylor at Sacramento State.
Yeah.
I mean, Sacramento State has not been that good of a program. And in a very short time period, he got him in the top 4 in the country in FCS. I mean, this guy is a game changer. And I could see how this would be an out-of-the-box move for the Cardinal to bring on their sidelines in Palo Alto.
Yeah,
other
I mean,
guys,
he's right. He's out there in that area.
He's out there. Exactly.
They know about this guy. I mean, that's for damn sure.
I mean, hell, he played at Cal. I mean, he knows the recruiting scene. He knows the coaches. I mean, you're going to see people talk about Bill O'Brien. I just don't see the fit.
No.
I mean, Ryan Walters, if he's not going to get the Colorado job, I'd stay at Illinois.
Yeah.
Well,
he's getting paid. He's getting paid a lot of money at Illinois.
Yeah.
They were worried about him leaving last year, and he got re-upped and got a big raise last year. So I don't think he's going to leave for that job. I think he'll probably wait and try and get another one. But the other job that we got to talk about, besides Georgia Tech, is Colorado. Deion Sanders came out today and didn't come from some idiot's mouth. It came from Deion's mouth that he was offered the job. But he didn't say he was taking it. He said he was offered the job. Besides Deion, who else do you think might fit in Boulder?
Well, Walters. I mean, I think Walters would be the best case scenario. I mean, played there, knows the system. I mean, honestly, Eric Bieniemy, because I don't understand how this guy keeps getting passed over for NFL jobs. I mean, he developed Pat Mahomes, for Christ's sake. I mean, with the work of Andy Reid too as well. I mean, you're offensive coordinator of a juggernaut offense. How is he not getting looks? I mean, granted, we could be talking about a Brent Venables situation where he's looking for the right job at the right time. I get it.
Well, how is this not the right job at the right time? This is his school. This is where he went. This is where he won.
He was an offensive coordinator there under Embry. Yeah, I cannot figure this one out at all.
I think, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't already been hired there. This guy's been a successful coach for a long time. I think if I was choosing between Deion and Eric Bieniemy, and I was the administration at Colorado, I would go with Eric Bieniemy. I mean, nothing against Deion. I think Deion's proved himself to be a good coach, but this is a guy who lives and breathes Colorado football.
You know who would be an interesting, and I never even thought about because he's not even coaching right now, is Bronco Mendenhall.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stepped down from Virginia, which I never understood that move to begin with, but you put him on, coached at BYU forever. You put him in Boulder, and he's got that hard-nosed approach, kind of getting back to what McCartney did when he was there. Or, heck, what about Gary Patterson?
Yeah. No, I if he wants to coach, this is a guy who won a lot of games at TCU. And I kind of, the programs have some similarities, in my opinion. So I actually like that name there. So we'll have to see. But Georgia Tech, Stanford, Colorado, those are probably the 3 biggest jobs still open. Do you see any other jobs coming open?
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, South Florida will be interesting to watch that one because I think that's an intriguing job that somebody can win at. They've never been able to get the right fit, but you need somebody that understands who can coach, but also recruit that Tampa scene really well.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Getting these kids that are from Florida to stay in Florida.
Yeah.
That's the trick. So we'll see how that works out. We've got another big week of college football here. I mean, a lot of things can happen. We're obviously going to come back on Sunday and we're going to talk about, who's going to the college football playoff. I think we already know a couple of teams that's going. I mean, USC, we can go ahead and break the news. USC is in the top 4. They are ranked number 4 right now. Number 1 is Georgia. Number 2 is Michigan. Number 3 is TCU. And number 4 is USC. But Ohio State's number 5. and it looks like Alabama is number 6. So TCU loses, USC loses. Both those teams have to play. Either one of those teams loses, Ohio State's right back into this thing.
Yeah, I could easily. I think USC has to lose. I think that is the one thing that has to happen, and Ohio State is in.
What about TCU? If they lose, don't you think Ohio State moves up?
I don't. Honestly, that's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, because you look at TCU's schedule. I mean, the one thing about the Big 12 this year was it was competitive top to bottom. Like, there were no off weeks. I mean, Iowa State finished last, but Iowa State's defense was pretty freaking good against everybody except TCU.
So you think that TCU could beat Ohio State straight up on a neutral field?
Well, I mean, from a matchup standpoint,
who the hell's going to cover Marvin Harrison Jr.? Who's covering Julian Fleming? Who's covering Cade Stover? Who's covering? I mean, I don't know. Well, yeah.
We could go the other way on that one too. I agree with you. I think Ohio State would win. I just think there is a lean to putting they wouldn't be a Big 12 champion. That would be intriguing. Yeah, I think Ohio State would get in. I think they would get in. Yes.
Well, if you get beat by a 9-3 Kansas State team, I think that harms your credibility with the committee. And plus, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, TCU's got a pretty decent fan base there in Fort Worth, but who do you think is going to show up more to the bowl game?
Yeah.
TCU fans or the nationwide Buckeye Nation?
It'd be interesting because they would go head-to-head against Georgia in the Peach Bowl.
Yeah. We'll see.
That would be interesting.
Hey, you know what? I'm just glad. I think the committee got it right. Is all I'm going to say.
Right now, absolutely.
I think they got it right. I think USC deserves to be ahead of us and have that number 4 spot. They've been a hotter team as of late, and they had a big win over Notre Dame. I mean, we beat Notre Dame too, but they also beat some other teams. They beat UCLA, which is no slouch. They've won the games they've had to win. And then I think about the teams that, the loss that USC has. I mean, that really sticks out to me. They lost to Utah by 1 point at Utah. So that to me, that's kind of why I'm giving the nod to USC as number 4. I think they deserve it. Their only loss is by 1 point to Utah. So, and as I mentioned, big wins over UCLA and also Notre Dame to close out the season. And I think if they beat Utah again, or beat Utah and pick up where they lost, I think they'll definitely be in. So
yeah,
that'll be pretty interesting to watch. I always love conference championship weekend. That's usually when in my younger days I'd be out in Vegas this weekend putting money down. But as people can see, I'm not young anymore. So I won't be, but used to have a good time out there. Used to take home a lot more money than I brought betting on college football. So we'll see what happens, but awesome show today. Thank you so much to two-time All-American offensive lineman from Penn State University, Coach Jeff Hartings. Awesome guest today. Really enjoyed speaking with him, and we appreciate everybody tuning in on a Tuesday to Man Coverage here. If you missed any of the show, go to YouTube, go to Twitter, go to Facebook, download it anywhere where you download your podcast, and we'll see you on Sunday, buddy.
You bet. We'll see you then.
All right. Keep your chin up.
Later.